Hi there, I'm Michael Bovee with ConsumerRecoveryNetwork.com, and thanks for tuning in to our YouTube channel. Today, as part of our focus on how to deal with each individual bank that you might be struggling to keep payments current with, we're going to talk about Capital One. Capital One is unique in and of itself as far as the size of credit card issuer it is in the US. For example, they are probably the most active quote-unquote subprime credit card issuer out there. Back when we had our recent recession a few years ago, credit card banks saw their most dramatic default rate ever. And a lot of the subprime issuers were the ones that saw the worst. And they folded up and got absorbed by big banks. And there really hasn't been anybody to step into their shoes. Capital One is an exception to that. They issue a lot of starter credit cards with lower credit limits, maybe higher interest rates. They issue credit card to people with, that are trying to bounce back from negative credit, that kind of thing. So they're really cool in that way, and then they're not so cool in other ways for the folks that fall behind. So let's talk about that. When you're dealing with Capital One, and let's say it's the only account you're struggling with, that's great. Reach out to them direct or resolve the account with them directly. The more accounts you have, though, credit cards specifically, you want to maybe talk with a credit counseling agency first, a nonprofit. There's over 100 of them nationwide. You can call the hotline on the screen and press 1 and get connected to the oldest national nonprofit credit counseling agency and talk about how you can get your payments reduced for all of your accounts, consolidated into one. But if you're just dealing with Capital One, you can usually handle that on your own. And here's how. Calling to Capital One while you're current isn't going to go much of anywhere productive as far as getting some kind of reduction from them, monthly payment reduction. But if you're just even a week late and you call and talk with a representative at Capital One, they know that you're late, they see that, and they're going to treat your account differently than if you haven't missed a payment to them yet. Let's say your balance is $5,000 and you're going to be short on, or have been, and haven't made your minimum payment for a few weeks or even a couple of months. They can talk to you about hardship plans that they have where maybe it's 3, 6, 9, 12 months long, and you are able to stay on that reduced monthly plan for that period of time, and when you come out of it, you'll be back to the interest rate and minimum payment that you were. And by the way, that is how they accomplish a lower monthly payment, is that they're willing to reduce your interest rate, whether it's temporary or long-term. That's how they work with the credit counseling agencies, the long-term plans. You can sometimes still get, in certain situations, a lifetime of the balance repayment plan, lower monthly repayment plan that'll not go beyond 60 months or 5 years. They can't do them longer than that on your own, rather than having to go through a credit counselor. I just don't see them as much with Capital One anymore, so be aware of that. The types of monthly payment reductions that they're going to give you are typically going to be for a short duration. Now, what if you cannot even pay your minimum, or even a reduced monthly minimum from Capital One, and that's going to be the way it is? In other words, stuff has happened so negatively in your finances that you're going to not be paying them for many months. Sometimes you look forward and you're not going to be able to pay them because you're out of work medical-wise, laid off, still looking for work, exhausted your savings, and something's got to give, and the credit card payments are finally going to give. Long-term looking and planning to resolve Capital One account is important. Why? Because currently Capital One is probably the most litigious credit card bank in the United States, and have been for some time. I think they file the most credit card lawsuits in Hennepin County, Minnesota, Cook County, Illinois, Minneapolis, Chicago. They sue a lot, and and I've seen these just recently, for $400. As little as $400 will trigger a lawsuit from an attorney working for Capital One. So knowing that, you should be targeting them for your earliest opportunity to save up money, whether you're saving it up monthly or tapping a resource, selling that 10-speed in the garage that you haven't ridden in 10 years, whatever it is, you come up with the money and you can reach back out to Capital One and look to resolve the debt through negotiation. When you're calling them, we cover negotiation, by the way, quite a bit on our YouTube channel and a ton on the ConsumerRecoveryNetwork.com website. I've got a couple of pages up that are dedicated to settling with Capital One at different stages of collection. But when you reach out to them, they are going to look for reasons why you're unable to pay. So whatever it was that led to your inability to pay, does that condition still persist? Has it gotten worse? oftentimes people that negotiate and settle are borrowing the money from family and friends to do it in the first place. And be transparent about all that stuff. The worse it is to be you financially, the more damaging it is, the impact of whatever it is you're going through and the need to borrow money even, that's the kind of stuff you share. The stuff that makes it good to be you, like, oh, it was back then, it was 2 years ago and I fell behind and I couldn't pay and now things are great, got a new job, I'm calling to resolve this. You're not going to get much of a settlement. So focus on the things that make it hard to be you financially, and don't go into any details of anything that talks about you bouncing back or any kind of credit goals or credit reporting goals or anything. That's just the tip of the hat that they should hold out and get as much money from you as possible. And once an account has gone, say 6 months past due, the credit damage is done. You're not going to get any brownie points for paying something back in full at these inflated penalties, fees, interest amounts on your credit. So ideally, at that stage with the damage done, and with the inflated balance, trying to negotiate the lowest payoff you can is a good idea. Here's an issue though. When you're settling with Capital One, and it's been this way for many years now, your realistic targets are typically going to be half. They don't really settle for less than 50%. Let's see, it's December 2015. I think I saw one settlement on a Capital One account that was under 50% this year. I see a lot of them. Or even last year, if memory serves, one. And it was like a really old account, like 5-6 years old. So if your account isn't, that old, you have no shot likely at getting under 50%. I don't care who's collecting on it. It could be with Capital One, it could be with just a regular old debt collection agency that they work with, or one of their collection attorneys that they work with. Your targets are realistically going to be half. Sometimes you won't even get half. Sometimes they won't go that low. Sometimes they'll go to 60%. You could call Capital One and you could be 5 months and 2 weeks late, and they're getting ready to charge off the account, in other words, take a loss on it, and you can't get any settlement. There are situations where Capital One just flat out will refuse to work with you. There's kind of criteria that I can cover on a consult if you want to call me, or you can type in the comments below about your issues. If they did refuse it, I'll ask you a couple of specific questions and we can get to the bottom of why. But don't think that you'll never be able to settle it just because they wouldn't at, say, 5 months and 2 weeks. They will often approve settlements, or you're kind of pre-approved if they send it to a collector or an attorney for collection, where negotiating at 50% with those guys is probably more likely to happen, even though Capital One wouldn't do it with you directly. So a couple things, now that you know kind of the lay of the land and what kind of percentages to target. By the way, don't speak in percentages, speak in round numbers, in and around 50%. Go lower, obviously, if they come back at 70 or 60 and you say, I don't know, I can't do it, call them back in a few days and jump your offer up closer to that 50%. And that's sometimes how you negotiate, which again, we cover on other videos and on the website. When you're dealing with Capital One and you need something done on your credit report, this is unique to them and something really should be done about it. I haven't seen any real, any news about this, and I haven't seen any kind of regulatory updates to this, but Capital One, when you settle, will sometimes, and sometimes not, still report a balance owed to them. So let's say, for example, you have a $5,000 account, you settle it for $2,500. It's all documented, you've got a letter on Capital One's letterhead or the debt collector, and it says, hey, you owed us $5,000 and we're agreeing to accept $2,500 as payment in full, and this debt is settled as long as payment's made by such and such a date. You get it in there by that date. Everything's good, everybody agreed to this whole thing, and yet they'll still report $2,500 due, the portion that was unpaid on your credit report, and it can be a bear to get off. So, and then I see them not do that in other instances. So be careful of your expectations on credit reporting. They are the only bank that I see do this. Every single other one follows through and reports a zero balance owed once you settle. So stay tuned, for updates on that. But I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that, if that was one of your goals, was to negotiate and get it to show zero balance. Thanks for tuning in about Capital One, and I'll look forward to you on the next video.